Welcome back to another Kentucky Derby profile here on Racing Rundown. Today we're going to be talking about Tawny Port. And actually, interestingly enough, this is my last preview that I will be doing. I didn't do these in fully chronological order, but this is the last preview that I'm going to do before the also eligibles, which will come Derby week. So it's been a marathon for me getting them all done, but we're finishing off with Tawny Port, the winner of the Lexington Stakes. And we're actually going to go to Tawny Port's first career start, which was a maiden race at Turfway in December, going a mile. And this is going to be a very strong impression for Tawny Port on debut. He's the 3 right there, so he's breaking pretty close to the back end, or as they go into the turn, he's pretty close to the back end of this field. But he's going to eventually put himself in a pretty decent position in this race. But he's backed up to second to last about at this point in the race, not really doing too much in the early stages of it, just sitting close to the rail. Eventually, I'm describing this as it's going to happen, but eventually he's going to get up toward the outside. You see right there, he's starting to get himself into contention early, which is a good thing to see. He's giving those leaders some good ground. He has to move around the one there, but he is getting closer to that group. You see there's a rather, not, I don't want to say a big gap, but a pretty significant separation between him and that big group of horses up in the front. The 6 right there is beginning to tire, and Tawny Port is getting in right now. At this point, he's making his move forward. He's ran by the 6. He's going to go by the 4 here. There's that little bunch of horses right there up at the front, and that is actually going to require Tawny Port to have to be widest of all in this race, because there's just nowhere to go at this point in this race. And that's something that's a real positive for Tawny Port. The fact that he's going widest of all here in this debut, and he's gonna go by the leaders at this point. I hate this camera angle at Turfway because it didn't really give you the full picture of this, but he's blown by this group at this point. He's it's a procession down the stretch for him, and obviously you look at this. There's a lot of promise with him going forward from here. Very good impression to give on his career debut. We're going to move on now to the second start of Tawny Port's career, which is an allowance race at Turfway, also going that mile distance. So good consistency and progression up into distance. He isn't jumping into anything too quickly. He gets a much better position early on than he did in his maiden race. That's the one big difference from this race, is he's a lot more forwardly placed. He's not coming from next to last at this point. Once again, I shouldn't say once again. I mean, obviously from the finish of last race, he was wide, but wasn't quite wide in the earlier part of last race. But he is wide there. But once again, he's spotting the leaders. Those first 2 right there, Steinbeck and Win Money. They're going to go out there, duel with each other. Tawny Port's doesn't need to have any part of that right now. He is sitting back in 4th or 5th place, actually, now at this point, as I think that was the 7. I can't see which number that horse with the yellow shirt on it was in there, but he was sitting 4th. Now Tawny Port's sitting 5th, and actually some of the horses that were running further behind him are actually getting up closer to him, so he's not really in any hurry right now. But these 2 leaders are just kind of scrimmaging with each other. Eventually they're going to come back to Tawny Port, and Tawny Port is beginning to move now at this point, getting at least closer to those leaders again. And unfortunately, the just cut right there, so we didn't quite see him. But now he's moved up to this point. These 2 leaders are done. He's going to run right by them at this point right here. The fractions are beneficial for him. Again, he wasn't up there doing any of the dirty work. I have to say once again, I hate this camera angle because I can't really tell what's happening. But Tawny Port is beginning to put some ground on the field, but he's having trouble putting away the 4 there. The 4 is kind of fighting back with him. And then there comes the 1 on the outside. But Tawny Port gets there and gets it done in his second career start. Not really anything super sensational, but a good note for him to end on as he goes into his second, or as he goes into his third career start, which is going to be his stakes debut, the Risen Star Stakes. Now, I'm doing this different. We're looking at the Equibase chart for him right now. I'm not going to show you the replay of this because, unfortunately, you barely see Tawny Port, or at least anything significant for him in there, because down the backside, he's not really too much in the picture. And then, unfortunately, in the stretch of the Risen Star, he's actually blocked out by some of the graphics from the Fairgrounds racetrack. So, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take a look at that. But you look at some of the names he was running behind here. Epicenter, the Derby favorite. Zandon and Smile Happy, the 1-2 finishers from the Bluegrass. Finished in front of Slowdown Andy, the Sunland Derby winner. So there's some good back class here. First time on dirt, didn't have, you could look at this race and say, is it great? No, but there's some upside for him. I don't think that the Risen Star was the worst effort in the world for Tawny Port. And again, I think there's some positives that you can draw from that, particularly really just that he was going up against a really quality group of horses in there. He does get back to what he's familiar with, though, in his next start, which is the Jeff Ruby Stakes back at his home at Turfway. And he is going to go up against one of the better turf horses in the country right now, and Tiz the Bomb here. We'll get to Tiz the Bomb a little bit later here, but establishing himself once again, different from his maiden effort. He's not sitting next to last there, so that's obviously one of the major differences. I mean, oftentimes, horses are not running the same way that they ran in their maiden races, and he is certainly a lot closer in the earlier point of this race. Once again, Swing Shift and Dow Jack Chief are going to be the two kind of the same way that the two horses in his second career start did. They're going to go out there. Now, they're not dueling to the degree that those two were, but Tawny Port is wide again, but sitting a good position. He's in front of Tiz the Bomb at this point. And he's got that perfect garden trip that he wants to have in all of his races. That's going to eventually be a little bit hairy come Kentucky Derby time with him. We'll see eventually how that plays out. But right now, he's sitting a really, really good trip right now. The leaders they're going pretty good, 23-1, 47-1. So not really anything. They're pretty honest fractions, and he makes his move right here. And I wonder if that was because Tiz the Bomb was making his move, because Tiz the Bomb's making his move at the same time. Tawny Port's going to strike the front here, take the lead away from the long shot Dowa Jack Chief, but he is eventually going to be outclassed by Tiz the Bomb, who at this point is a few minutes away from making his move, and now he has made his move here. And once again, I can't tell you exactly when Tiz the Bomb goes by, but he's gone by now at this point. And losing to Tiz the Bomb is not a bad thing. Remember, this is a horse who's Breeders' Cup placed. They're running on a surface that is definitely more to his liking, the Tapeta surface. But Tawny Port's giving a really good impression of himself right here. He's competing with Tiz the Bomb, who, as I just leveled a bunch of praise on him. I think he's a really quality turf horse. Derby, I don't know with Tiz the Bomb, but certainly a really good horse. And Tawny Port, from that point, had enough to get into the Kentucky Derby. 40 points. There were some defections. The big weekend after the Santa Anita Derby, there were a couple major defections, Classic Causeway and Forbidden Kingdom, so he had the points to get into the Derby. But trainer Brad Cox said, we're going to go the old-time route with him. We're going to make sure that we get into the Derby, but we're also going to try to see if he likes the dirt. And so they ran him in the Lexington Stakes at Keeneland, which is 1 1/16 miles, 2 weeks after the Jeff Ruby. Not very often that you see this from a horse on the Kentucky Derby Trail, much less one with enough points to get into the Derby. But Tawny Port, establishing himself in that, he's much more forwardly placed in this race, even than he was in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. But eventually, he's going to back off because a couple other horses decide that they want the lead. So once again, he's going to sit in the same position he sat really in the Jeff Ruby, sitting off of 3 leaders at this point. And again, you have to like Tawny Port's ability to find the position in the race where he's going to put himself in the chance to run his best. The 7 right there, Major General's leading them, but Tawny Port's not really spotting him too much here. He's in front of some of his other major challengers at this point. Now he's starting to let the field get a little bit closer to them because, as I mentioned before, there's no reason for him to want to be up there. The fractions are friendly for him. They slowed down to 48 and almost 48 flat there. And he's the one thing that I will say about Tawny Port is he's wide in pretty much every single one of his races. So if you're thinking about him as a potential long shot horse for the Kentucky Derby, that's certainly a positive because being wide for him has never been a problem, and especially in his maiden race when he was super wide. But he's beginning to make his move here at this point. He's going to be 3 wide in this race, and the leaders are getting very friendly fractions at this point. If you remember, in the Bluegrass, very similar to the way Emmanuel got some very friendly fractions, so is Major General. And Major General is actually not that hard, not that easy to run by here. But Tawny Port is moving really well at this point, and he's going to go by Major General at this point, win this race by about a length and a half here at the end. So he answers the dirt question there. And it certainly goes to show you that you can take the old school route occasionally with horses. So that begs the question, well, what can you do with Tawny Port going to the Kentucky Derby? I don't think Tawny Port's a win candidate, but is Tawny Port a horse you can use underneath as a long shot? There are worse horses in this Kentucky Derby that are going to be prices in here. Uh, the one thing that I will say, and I'll get into it more with the cons, but I don't like the form from horses going from the Lexington to the Kentucky Derby. But we'll get into the pros. He answered the dirt question in his last start, so that's certainly a big important thing. The form from the Risen Star was great. I'll show you the chart from that one more time. Even though he was well beaten in the Risen Star, he was well beaten by some of the best horses on the Derby Trail. So that's at least a positive that you can take if you're trying to find some silver lining with him. And then he has an ability to put wins together. His first two career efforts, the really credible effort behind it, even though it wasn't a win, the really credible effort behind Tis the Bomb, and then obviously the Lexington. So he can win races. The cons, though, the Lexington to the Derby form is very bad. No horse has won the Kentucky Derby after winning the Lexington or after running in the Lexington Stakes since 1999. That was Charismatic, and Charismatic is to date the only horse who's ever done that, and only 3 others have hit the board. So, and the average finish of runners exiting the Lexington Stakes in the Kentucky Derby is 9th. So he's running up against some very bad historical trends there. I did say the Risen Star form was very good, but he was well beaten by 3 much better horses. And then kind of a generic last one, his figures aren't great. You know, they're better than some horses, but they don't really stack up too much against some of the rest of the field. I will say, though, if you're thinking about him as a potential long shot horse, they're better than Unojos. They're better than Barber Road. So, you know, if you're looking for that, if you're like me and you're looking for that kind of horse, he's got more upside to him than a Barber Road or an Unojo, and really just a Barber Road. This is going to kind of become a theme. You'll hear it with Eric's preview. You'll hear it in my Unojo preview. Barber Road, just don't bet Barber Road. Everyone else has jumped on him. I really don't know why, but that's beside the point. Just got to sneak my little Barber Road. Barber Road, try to help you not pick him in the Kentucky Derby talk in there. But Tawny Port, there's things to like about him. There's things to not like about him. He's one to... The draw and potential race setup could depend on whether or not you use him. But he's a horse that I could consider using underneath in the Kentucky Derby. And with that being mentioned, that's it for this profile. And this is, as I mentioned, this is my last profile of the 20 horses that are in the body of the field. As I mentioned, we are going to have profiles for any and all also eligibles that do enter the week of the Kentucky Derby. But those are a couple weeks away. We will see you in those subsequent videos. And be sure, if you haven't already, to check the playlist down below where you can see all 19 of the other Kentucky Derby profiles here on Racing Rundown. We'll see you then. Have a good one.